All right, major playoffs time, everyone. Welcome back to another video of those pick'em, I guess, series that we're doing right now. This has been by far the worst one that we've ever had on this channel for the last couple of majors. I'm not gonna put that on Luca, by the way, because this is the first one I'm doing alone. We had guests for the previous ones, but every single time I changed a little bit from the picks that we were left with Munster, and I think even without the change, and with the change, without the change, it would have been bad either way. Now, with that being said, we can still, I think, on paper, get a gold coin out of this, which is the goal right now, because I haven't had a silver coin in a really long time. But we will see. Now, for those of you that have been watching, you can definitely tell that this has been one of the most difficult majors to predict. And going into this one, I will ride the craziness train up until the end, and I think it's been one of the best majors that we've had in the last couple of years. Definitely, the playoffs are gonna be intriguing, and there's a lot of storylines and a lot of things that could go wrong for anyone that is trying their best to predict. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Now, we're gonna start it off with, I think, the probably two matches in my eyes that should be the sure thing, and the two matches that, well, not even sure things, but I would say the two matches that I have the easiest time justifying which team I want to go for. So the first one, and I think this is a really obvious one for a lot of people, is going to be Team Spirit making the semifinals over Liquid. Now, I think for this iteration of Liquid, for the type of Counter-Strike that Liquid have been playing in the last couple of months, making playoffs in a major is already a big enough success. The fact that this iteration of Liquid has been probably one of the best that we've seen in the last couple of years out of this organization, probably true, but I still feel like there's something missing, and I'm not necessarily sure that this is the Team Liquid that they want to go with for 2025. And I honestly believe they are probably one of the teams, maybe alongside FaZe, that should be, and it's a crazy thing to say when you have organizations like the Mongols and Heroican, but whoever's watched knows what type of Counter-Strike they were playing. So I think Liquid on their own, even I can't put them in the same category with FaZe. They're probably the only team that you can't make a point about reaching the grand final and maybe even winning the entire thing. And I'm even going to throw in Heroic and the Mongols into the conversation of potentially getting to the grand final and winning. I just think Liquid by far is probably the team that is the lowest in terms of their development, in terms of their ceiling in that entire playoff stage. And I think this should be a no-brainer that Spirit needs to win this. Even though Spirit were not necessarily their best selves in the previous stage, I still think they are a team that's going to show a lot more in the playoff stage. So yeah, this is one that I'm not really disputing too much. I feel like Spirit should be going through. And now the other one that I am pretty convinced is going to go the way that it is going to go is Vitality over FaZe Clan. And what is the reason for that decision? Now, unlike the Spirit and Liquid one, this is a type of a matchup that's really difficult to predict because we're talking about FaZe. Yes, FaZe was quite close to being eliminated in the previous stage. They needed to play a deciding best of 3 against Furia, but FaZe is that type of a team that is going to always show their best when push comes to shove, pretty much, when it's the last and final opportunity for them to do so. That was the reason that, in case you've watched the previous video where we did the pickems for the elimination stage with Luca, you've noticed that we said the only reason we're putting FaZe in is the fact that if they get to a 2-2 matchup and they have to play a decider against pretty much any team here, we'd favor them. And that is the reason that you can never write FaZe off in playoff stages. And I feel like you can make a valid point that FaZe could beat Vitality. You could pretty much make a valid point that FaZe could win the entire thing, basically, if you really want to, because it's FaZe Clan in the end of the day. You have Rain and Karrigan, who are always playing outstanding Counter-Strike when it comes down to majors. You have players like Drops Frozen and Brokey that can always step it up. So you never know when it comes down to FaZe in the big stage. I just have a lot of trust in Vitality right now, even though it's been quite a while since they won their last tournament in Cologne. I think Mezzi's been playing outstandingly. The RMR and the elimination stage of the major have been the two best events for Mezzi with the Vitality jersey so far on LAN when it comes down to big events. And I think if he's able to keep it going with that performance in supportive roles when it comes to the playoffs, if Zywoo shows up to play, if Spinks and Flames are just there, putting on the numbers that they need to. Not even anything crazy, but I think they've always been good with playing in front of the crowd, and I still think Apex is one of the best in-game leaders in the game. I think Vitality have a lot going on for them, and with the supportive element of Messi providing what he has been, the others just need to go, I guess, cover maybe 70-75% of the expectations, and I think Vitality should be able to outclass FaZe Clan in this one. So those are the two games that I'm really comfortable with. Now, the remaining two quarterfinals for me is really difficult to make up my mind, and I'm gonna start it off with this one. I'm gonna start it off with the Mongos over Mouse, and the reason I'm gonna do that, I feel like I'm not sure who it was, but there was, I think Pimp phrased it in a really good way. The Mongols are probably the only team in the last year and a half coming out of the level of Counter-Strike that they did out of a different region that has shown that they can play tier 1 Counter-Strike. And this is something that Simple as well himself said on his Twitter. Mongols right now is playing like a tier 1 organization, like a not a tier 1 organization, like a tier 1 team. The protocols are like tier 1. The way that the individuals are going into fights are tier 1. The way that they're moving their crosshairs, the decisions they're making, the reactions, a lot of the even simple things like when they're placing the tactical timeouts, what are the adjustments coming out of them, how quickly do they make those readjustments when something is not working out. A lot of the things are just screaming the Mongols can play like a tier 1 team. Now, the conversation to be had here is, will the Mongols crumble under the pressure of playing on stage and actually people expecting something out of them? I don't really think people are still expecting them to beat Mouse and to beat a lot of the other teams here. So I feel like if you're the Mongols going into this one, you might as well just have that really calm presence of mind saying, you know what, we're going to go out, we're going to play the type of Counter-Strike that we can. We're not going to get overheated with emotions, so to speak. And I think out of the interviews that they've given, it kind of feels like they are a pretty relaxed team, and I just trust them to stay relaxed and composed and play the same type of Counter-Strike. I do rate Mouse really highly, and I think obviously one would be a fool not to, but if the Mongols are able to bring that same level that they were in the last couple of months bringing to the table and that they did in the elimination stage, in the opening stage, I honestly believe that Mouse are going to be surprised again, even though they should know what level the Mongols can bring to the table. But I think they could get surprised by the level that the Mongols can bring onto the stage as well. And I really believe that if you're looking at the pieces of the Mongols as well, it's probably one of the best teams that we've ever had coming outside of Europe and outside of North America. Well, we're including South America, but outside of NA in Europe, probably one of the best teams in the history of the game, right? You're looking at the only other team that was able to make playoffs like that and be competitive in majors was probably Renegades, but that's not even Asia, that's Australia. Back in the day when JKS was still on the team. So the first ever Asian team to make major playoffs, and I think they're going to be the first ever major team to actually, or first ever Asian team to make semifinals as well. I think when it comes down to Mouse, it's a difficult discussion to be had because they can, on a good day, they can beat anyone in the world, but I just don't see that team winning an event, and I don't see that team performing to that same level, especially with the rumors that, you know, Jim Hat could be going over to Falcons. A lot of the other players could be approached by other organizations in a way that could alleviate the pressure and take a lot off your shoulders. But I just believe that the Mongols will just want it more going into this one, and with Blitz being in the form he is as an in-game leader and probably one of the best fragging IGLs in the world, with Senzu, with 910, with Techno playing the Counter-Strike that they are right now, I just think the Mongols are probably one of the best teams, and one of the, still, even now after what they did in the elimination stage, still one of the more underrated teams. So we're gonna put them into the semifinals. We have a Mongol Spirit semifinal, and then we have Vitality against G2 or Heroic. Now, everything logically screams this should be G2, right? G2 should be probably the best team in the world right now in terms of firepower, in terms of the results that they can put up on stage. G2 is one of the most, in my eyes, one of the two most legitimate contenders to win this entire event, and I would say is between G2 and Vitality in that specific scenario. Now, what I will say, if you think G2 can go all the way, and there is a really fair point to be made about G2 going all the way, you know, Hunter, Monacy, and Nico have always loved playing on stage. Snax' calling in the elimination stage was actually, I think, some of the best that we've seen out of him on G2 for a couple of months. Malps is an incredibly skilled player. G2's firepower wise is maybe the best player, maybe the best team in this entire event right now. However, if you don't believe that they're gonna win, because I don't, I would argue that Vitality, and for whatever reason, because G2's been winning so many events and they've been winning so many head-to-heads so many head-to-heads against everyone, because of the factors that I already listed in terms of how much I believe in Vitality. I would say between G2 and Vitality, I would choose Vitality to win this one. So I'm like, you know what? I'm quite comfortable with the Spirit pick. I'm quite comfortable with the Vitality pick. I'm even fairly comfortable with the Mongols pick. I'm gonna go and be creative. I'm gonna go and do something wild here. I'm gonna go for Heroic over G2. And you know what's the awful part about it? Heroic, in terms of when you're playing against G2 right now, there's no strong veto. There's no weaknesses for them. They can pick anything. They're comfortable with Anubis. They're comfortable with Ancient. They're comfortable with even the Mirage that was starting to fall apart for a second. Obviously, they're not gonna get to play an Inferno against Heroic because they veto it. But there's so many maps that G2 are comfortable on to play against every single team in the world. So any logic in the world, and I'm gonna say that if you want to be perfect, if you want to get all of them right, the logical one is probably go for G2. I just have been incredibly impressed by Heroic, and I think, again, is probably a similar conversation that could be had with the Mongols. I think Heroic is an incredibly underrated team even now, and I feel like with the work that Kickson has been doing as an in-game leader, with the great play that we've seen from both Shush and Tessis across the elimination stage, with Dexter hitting some of the best form that we've seen from him so far with the Heroic jersey in this event, and with Nerds being Nerds, that we know is still one of the best riflers in the game, I honestly believe that Nerds and Dexter can show their best selves, so to speak, on the big stage. I believe the chance of an upset here is not that large, but I really believe that it exists still. So I'm just gonna go for Heroic here for fun's sake, I guess. If you want to make the logical option, it's probably put G2 here, but I will still go for Heroic. And now we get into the semifinals. I still think Vitality, no matter who they play between G2 and Heroic, are gonna win. Obviously, they're gonna have an easier time if they gotta play Heroic, but I think even if it's a G2 Vitality, I still back Vitality to take it all the way and make it into the semifinals. The other semifinal is really interesting. Now, again, Spirit is on paper probably a team that should be able to make it to the final, but I was still not convinced enough with their performance in the previous stage, and for that reason and that reason only, I'm gonna go with the Mongols again. I think if you're the Spirit, you go against the Mongols side, a really heavy hitting side, a side that probably knows how to play calculated and intelligent Counter-Strike to try and counter Donk in a way, something that not a lot of people have been doing. But I think other than Donk, a lot of the pieces around them have been fairly inconsistent, even though the game is just built around him getting all the freedom and all the possibilities and all the chances in the world. I think unless he's able to put out a clinic against the Mongols, they're probably gonna lose this one. And I just rate the Mongols really highly right now, so I will take them even over Spirit under those circumstances, with all the, I guess, pretty nicely distributed firepower that they have on that team, and with the depth that they have, with the good protocols that they have. I think they should be able to figure out Spirit, unless they crumble under the pressure, which is a completely realistic thing to happen. And then we're left with the grand final, and I think you already guessed it. I'm gonna go for Vitality. Yeah, and that's where I'm gonna lock it in. I think Vitality are gonna take this major. I think ZywOo, as long as he doesn't go absent in the playoffs, they should be fine. Mezzi's been playing some of the best Counter-Strike we've seen from him, even the best, not some of it, but the best Counter-Strike we've seen from him in the Vitality jersey. I think Flames and Spinks have been good enough as well to support ZywOo, and obviously if Apex is on par with some of the other frag and IGLs, which I think he will be, considering this is a playoff stage, and he's always been really good in playoff games, and he's always been a guy that doesn't really, even if he lets the emotions get the better of him, it's not in a way that is going to stop him from having a clear judgment, I think. And I just believe that Vitality right now have what it takes to take it all the way, and especially if it happens like that. Now, the one place where things could go horribly wrong is G2 to win here, and then G2 Vitality. G2 could beat Vitality, G2 could beat Heroic, and it's probably highly likely they beat Heroic. The only way that this could go wrong in my eyes is if G2 just win the entire event, which I think is the other really realistic possibility. But this is what I'm going to go for. I'm going to try and be a little bit creative. I'm going to go for the Heroic over G2, which is probably going to end up being a complete mess. But I believe and I trust Heroic a lot on this one. So yeah, we have the Mongols against Spirit semifinals. Mongols making it to the grand final and then losing to Vitality. This is what we're going for. We're still dreaming to get a gold coin at least out of this one, so it's not a complete failure. But yeah, thank you for watching. Let me know what you think about it. And again, you can probably build a case about every single team in here, bar Liquid, I would say, to win the entire thing, and maybe bar Heroic, but I think Heroic could still be one to surprise a lot of people with another good result, probably. Maybe if they were against anyone but G2, it could have been a realistic thing, but G2 is just a nearly impossible one to overcome, and still I put Heroic over them, so we'll see how this one pans out. But yeah, make sure you let me know what you decided to go for. Make sure you let me know which points I made you agree with and which of them you disagree with. And yeah, I'm gonna see you in the next video, which is probably gonna be an interview after the major and potentially after a player break, but hopefully this one has helped you out to make up your mind a little bit onto who to support and who to put in your pickems for the final stage of the major. Thank you for watching. I'll see you soon. Bye bye.